Hi guys, it's oh, idiot. Hi guys, let's do another grain to glass with you. This time it's brewing with rice. Let's watch the brew footage and then we come back and try the beer and go through the recipe. Hi guys, found some rice in the pantry, so I thought we should try to make a brew with it. This is 760 grams of just normal plain rice. This is 500 grams of basmati rice. Before we can add this to a mash, we have to boil it for 30 minutes. Let's add in the rice. Just gonna cut these bags open. I don't want the bags. Now we're gonna rinse the rice. So what you want to do when you're cooking rice is to add 1 hand of water on top of the rice. So something like that. Normally I would add salt to this, but not today because we ain't gonna eat it. I'm gonna boil this for 30 minutes. And meanwhile I will heat up my mash water and also measure out my grains and crush them. We're up to a boil now. I'm gonna let this simmer for about 30 minutes. Okay. Cover this up. Here are the malts. I chose to use Pilsner malt as base malt. I used 2 kilos of base malt. Pilsner and Munich for base malt. I used 2 kilos of Pilsner and 1 kilo of Munich. And I also add 250 grams of Cara malt. This one has an EBC between 25 to 30. I can hear that the timer has gone off. The rice is cooked, so I'm just gonna crush this up. And I will also use some oat hulls, not to get a stuck mash, because I'm a little bit worried there about the rice. So this is to prevent this. And I used 400 grams. So let's get this crushed and into the mash tun. I usually heat my mash water 5 degrees above my intended mash temp. but this time I didn't. So I heated it up to 65, 66. The reason for that is because the rice is hot. This is just to not get any grains between the malt pipe and the kettle. So let's start with the grains. I'm gonna stir that while I add. The grains are in. I'm gonna add the oat hulls. We can remove this now. And now I will add the boiled rice. And this we're gonna have to stir really properly, I think. This is sticky, but the clumps disappear quite easily. That was the mailman. I hope I didn't get one more bill. He's never ever sending me anything funny. I'm gonna add a cap of lactic acid to start with. Then we're gonna pH test this in a while. But before this, I'm gonna give that a good stir, start the circulation, and check our temperature. This is how it looks like, the mash, the strange mash with the rice and the oat hulls and of course the malted barley. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit heavier to stir with the rice in it. Okay, let's hook up the circulation. We're circulating. I have to find a good flow rate. We'll go a little bit faster in the beginning and I will give it some more stirring to equal out the temperature. Okay, we have been going now for 15 minutes. We're sitting about 65, 66 degrees. Now we're going to take a pH reading. 1, 2, 3. See where we are at, and we're about 5.3, so we're good there. This is the 5.2 mark, and we're just a bit darker than that, so about 5.3. We have been mashing for an hour. I have the sparge water heating up. Now we're going to do a conversion test with iodine. And we're also going to take the pH of the sparge water. Can start to take the pH. This is another type of strip. I'm aiming for a pH of 6 for my sparge water. And 6 is right about there. I'm going to dip that in the sparge water. So we are at about 6. That will do. Let's make the conversion test. Just gonna pour a little sample here. We're just gonna pour some iodine over here, and if we do have starches left, this will turn to a purple dark color. If not, it will stay light. As you see, the conversion are finished, so now we can go ahead and mash out. As the conversion are done, I will raise the temp now to about 75-76 C. So it's time to taste the starter. This beer I will ferment with WLP 001, the Californian ale yeast. I made a big starter for this, 2.5 liters, because we want this beer to be super clean. Maybe some would have preferred lager yeast, but I really think this yeast is super clean. So instead of doing lager, I wanted to do an ale, but a very clean one. But to know for sure if this yeast will be good to ferment our beer with, we have to smell and taste the starter. Always taste your starter. I'm gonna pour myself a sample, and the rest of it we will decant, just leaving a small amount behind. There, it's a little bit more than usual, but the starter starting to get foggy, so maybe we can decant a little more before we pitch. Okay, let's give it a nose. Smells like a starter, very fruity. The starter was made at room temp for about 24 C or something like that. So it's fruity but clean. Can't smell anything wrong with it. So cheers, guys. It's fruity but extremely clean. Quite refreshing. So this will be a good yeast to ferment our beer with. Cheers. We are at 75-76 C, so we will start our mash out for 10 minutes mash out. Meanwhile, I will clean out this fermenter which I just kegged. It's a mint chocolate porter, so I hope that will turn out great. Actually, I took a little bit sample, but don't tell anyone. I'm gonna clean this out so we have something to put our wort in. Meanwhile, we do the mash out and then we're gonna sparge. So I've been mashing out for a little bit over 10 minutes, and now it's time to pull out the grains and start the sparging. So I have heated this water up to 78, and we checked the pH and it was around 6, so we're good there. Now we're gonna start the sparging. Meanwhile we're sparging, I have set the heat for 98 degrees Celsius, so we will heat up the wort at the same time, but we will get no boil over. So we're done with the sparging. Oh! Some weightlifting there. We're gonna give this a stir, and then we're gonna take a pre-boil gravity, and after that we will measure up the hops. And the reason why I stir before I take the sample is because I think the lower part will be much more dense than the top because of the sparging. I'm going to cool this down to 20°C before we take the measurement. Sample is cooled down. You also want to give this a few seconds to adjust to the temperature. Try to keep this in room temperature, about 20°C. Let's have a look. We have a pre-boil gravity at 1040. Now we can take that into account when we measure up our hops, or if we want to do anything to the wort. We're soon up to boil here. The hops for this one is going to be 15 grams of Magnum hops at 60 minutes, 30 grams of Tettnang at 15 minutes, and 30 grams of Tettnang at 5 minutes. At 50 minutes we will add some Protafloc and yeast nutrient. I like to skim the top. I know I don't have to, but I don't think it looks good. So I like to do it. And if I do it at this stage, I also keep an eye on the boil. Because always when I try to multitask, I get a boil over. Now it looks cleaner. So we'll throw this away. Okay, we're at the hot break now. As soon as the hot break is over, we will start the timer and add the first hop addition. It's a little bit calmer now, so I'm gonna go ahead and add this. I stopped waiting to add this. It's much easier to add it in the beginning. Gonna let this reach a boil now. As you see, we're just a little bit higher up there than I usually am. We're up to boil again, so we're gonna add 15 grams of Magnum and start the timer. We are at 50 minutes, so in goes 30 grams of Tettnang. We're at 5 minutes, so in goes the last hop drop, 30 grams of Tettnang. Now it's time to hook up the cooler. I'm going to take away this insulation, so we don't want that anymore. I'm also going to sanitize the lid by simply putting in here, old school. We're sanitizing with steam from the boil off. Just have to check it so I don't get a boil over. We're at flame out, turn off the heat and start our circulation. We're gonna take the post-boil gravity now, so we get our OG. We're at 1044. Did a little mistake. I realized that I have missed to add the yeast nutrient and the Protafloc, so I added it in after the boil, not realizing that the temperature had gone down so much so quick. So now I will raise the temperature up to 72°C before we start cooling it down again. And I guess the Protafloc won't work, but the yeast nutrient should. I hold the beer at 72 for about 15-20 minutes or so. Then I started the water again, and now we're down to 24 C. So we're gonna transfer it to the fermenter vessel, and it's always cooled down some degrees more on the transfer, so we will be fine. The yeast starter are sitting at 22, so they will meet each other properly. One last spray, star sand, before we start the flow. Let's do this. In goes the wort. The last drops from the kettle, and we're a little bit above 23 liters. Okay, now we're gonna oxygenate the wort. We need a sanitized host and a diffusion stone. I boiled the diffusion stone just to be extra anal about sanitation, and we will hook that up to the oxygen and start. Maybe we should blow up some star sand. Okay, now we will start the oxygenation process. We will give this quite slow flow rate there, just eyeballing it against the side of the fermenter. I'm gonna set this for 1 minute. Minutes are up. I'll clean this back in the star sand solution for the next time. So I decanted some more from here when it's settled. Now we're just gonna stir it up. Everything in suspension, the magnet is hanging on there. Okay, in goes the yeast. That's it. Now we're just gonna bring it down to the fermenting fridge. So we're at 24 liters. Okay, after a hard day's work, the beer are in here. The temp probe is insulated, and we're about 22.8 degrees to be exact. And now we're cooling it down to 18, where we will start our fermentation. So, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the brew day. Here's the beer. As usual, it's not as dark in real life as it is on camera. See if we can put some light through it. It has a straw, golden color. It looks like a Pilsner, a great amount of carbonation. It's crystal clear. I did use some finings in the boil, but it wasn't finely gelatin or something like that. It has been sitting in the keg for about 3 weeks. So time will clear beer, and carbonation is pushing the head out of the glass. It has a tight white head, almost looks like meringue. As I said, it's a golden straw colored beer. The intention with this brew was to sort out what rice can bring or will bring into brew. So I did keep the hops down from what I usually do. I didn't want to make a lager, so I used the WLP001, which is very clean ale yeast. So let's give it a nose. Yeah, it definitely have some rice on the nose, some boiled rice, and the Tettnang hops. No sweetness, just small hints of fruit. Let's dive in. Cheers. It's extremely clean. It's a nice beer. It has some chewiness from the rice, and it don't have a. It looks like a pilsner lager, but it don't have that twang, that lager twang, because it ain't a lager. It's an ale. But it's extremely clean, crisp, has a good mouthfeel. Yeah, quite a body for an FG of 1010, and also some of those fruit esters from the ale yeast. I would say this was a success, and I would actually think that those who don't drink ales and craft beer would appreciate this, because it's quite near a lager. You have the pilsner malt, you have the Tettnang hops, and of course the look of it, it looks like a lager. So I'm enjoying this. I think you should give it a go with brewing with rice. It was a fun experiment instead of throwing the rice away. Let's go through the recipe. There's still some left. Let's see if we can make it. This is a 23-liter batch. I used 2 kilos of pilsner malt, 1.25 kilos of pre-boiled rice, 1 kilo of Munich malt, 250 grams of caram malt, about 30 EBC. I used Magnum for bittering at 60 minutes, 15 grams. At 50 minutes I added 30 grams of Tettnang, and at 5 minutes I added 30 grams of Tettnang as well. And it was fermented with a California Ale White Labs WLP001, which I of course made a starter of, 2-liter starter, and this were fermented at 18C to start with before I bumped it up. I had an OG of 1044, and after about 7-8 days I fermented down to 1010, so it has an ABV of 4.4%. Quite a simple brew, but my intention was to highlight the rice. If we want to go a little bit crazy with this, I think we could even add some more rice, and we could spice it up with some lime leaves and coriander and ginger, maybe some chili in there. That would be cool. So it's like an Asian dish in a glass. How about that? I might have to do that. That's for another video. So, cheers guys. Thanks for watching. As usual, don't forget to thumbs up or thumbs down the video, comment below, subscribe to the channel and so on. DrHans out.